So preseason conditioning, you equate it to Fight Club.
Exactly. So one of the things I would do in class when classes started, because I was an exploratory major, which meant I had no idea what I wanted to do. So
Yep.
basically, they signed me up for a bunch of random classes. Um, one of which was like the colonization of Latin America. And
Okay.
so, so we would read these books, and half of it would be in Spanish. And like, it was just so overwhelming. I had no idea what was going on. And almost everyone else in the class was like majoring in that stuff. So basically, what I would do is sit there and I would just write down quotes from Fight Club, because I was like, I was going on a kick where I would just have it playing in my dorm room basically at all times.
Okay.
So I just like think about the philosophies that they were talking about and think about the quotes, and I'd be writing them down, and I'd be thinking about how they relate to the preseason conditioning and stuff like that. So
In your
my
exploratory Latin American class, this is what I love that.
yeah, I know exactly. Um, so I know my favorite one was I ran. I ran until my lungs burned and my veins pumped battery acid, and then I ran some more.
And
And-
that's definitely what your experience was with doing
God,
preseason work.
it just nailed it. Yeah, because I wasn't used to any type of training like that. Like I'd done a little bit of just kind of like basic conditioning work before high school,
Yeah.
um, and stuff like. But it's just such a different level when you get to college, and you know the guys that you're competing against are in their early to mid 20s, and
Yeah.
I was like, you know, a 19-year-old young buck who who was just like a tall, skinny kid and had never done anything like that. And so you're running constant sprints, you're doing you know, stadium stairs, all that shit. And it's just like no matter how much you think you can run or like how many sprints you think you can do, they somehow push you to do more. And it's just like it's just freaking brutal. And it's like it was just all consuming. But then after, you know, 5-ish weeks of that, as like my body started adapting, and it's like, oh, I realized that I can, you know, push myself and I'll start to change and stuff. And so then instead of being quite so torturous and me just like trying to survive it, is like, okay, I can actually you know, kick ass a little bit. And kind of when you get that feeling, it starts to give you confidence, because you realize you're not just out there getting blown around by the wind, but you can actually, you know, control things and you know, have a bigger impact than you thought you could initially.
Yeah, and I think that that's a great way of explaining like what your first year is like. Like first year experience, oh my gosh, that of you talking about like just trying to keep your head above water. Like you're just
Mm-hmm.
trying to survive. Like your first, because I remember we did our first set of warm-ups where it was like the warm-up before we started one of the off-season practices, or it was probably 2 days, was my very first experience and
Mm-hmm.
with football. And I remember we did the warm-up and I was like, all right, we're good, right? Like this is it. It's like, no, no, no. Now we're gonna practice. And I remember being like, oh my God, you are
Yeah.
kidding. Like it was just like you said, the shock to your system. It's not like you don't run in high school.
Yeah.
It's not like you don't do conditioning that's terrible, right?
Mm-hmm.
That has pushed you to your limit previously. But that first year, like that first season and first off season at that next level, when you start playing college sports, is like it is such a rude awakening. And I don't think it matters whether you are a scholarship guy, whether you are a walk-on guy, like it is for sure. It's like you're on the other side of the looking glass by the time you're a junior or a senior, and you're kind of
Mm-hmm.
watching those guys that come in and be like, oh, dude, you have no idea what you were about to be introduced to.
I know they just come in so green, and then it's just you just get molded. It's like I know another Fight Club quote. Well, like a guy showed up at Fight Club, his ass was a wad of cookie dough. After a couple weeks, he was carved out of wood, and it's like all this stuff like starts to make sense. And it's
Yeah.
I know I like so I went to I was in Stockton, California, which is a little bit more inland. So when I
Yeah.
got out there, it's in the 90s, low hundreds as far as temperature, and we were running sprints on the football field, and at one point, basically where you're like laying on your stomach, you have to push yourself up and then run the sprint. I think there were 30-yard sprints like that.
Yeah. Totally.
At one point, I go to push myself up, and I just immediately like projectile vomit, and then I run. And because I didn't make the time, because I was puking, everyone had to do it over again, and it was like, oh my god, like there's just no tolerance for like weakness or slippage or anything like that. It's just like you get your shit together and you get it done, and you fucking figure out how to do it.
Oh, so I have not ever told this story, and I'm absolutely going to tell it now because it is exactly what you're talking about. So I remember I'm now in, this is probably, you know, as every good walk-on does, you redshirt your first year because you're not going to play. So you might as well redshirt, and that's so you can maintain your years of eligibility. So I'm probably a redshirt sophomore. So this is probably like my third year now playing. So you kind of, like you said, you start to kind of figure that shit out. And you either learn from experience of causing everybody like you are vomiting, and therefore you've now fucked everybody over. And I remember, so we had to do a 300-yard shuttle, which was in 50-yard increments, right?
Yeah.
And this was your entrance, your ticket to get to go to in-season training. So we've done all off-season stuff, and you've done tons of conditioning and skill work and all this other stuff. And now you're getting ready to finally go into season, and you need to make the time where you have to do 2 300-yard shuttles. And it's like at 6 a.m. on the dot, right? So you're just up, you're out on the field, and they've set it up. So 50 yards, you know, it's down, back, down, back, down, back, down, back. And you got to make it. And lineman skill, big skill, right? From football, like that's all your times. So I think we had to hit like, I don't know, 58 seconds or something. And when I played and I got nervous, I got the shits. Right. It was like it was the point where I took like Imodium before games.
Okay.
It just was like a normal thing where I'm like, I'm gonna get a little queasy, and I'm a shitter. I'm not a puker. And so I just would knew like that was my lived experience of playing college ball. But I also had it in the mornings when, like, if I were gonna do a fucking test thing, I would get same thing. And it usually, if I had time, right, you'd be able to like evacuate and then be able to still go and do whatever your training was, but not these days. It's like, no, 6 a.m. first whistle goes and you're fucking running and you are doing the test. And so halfway through the first 300-yard shuttle, I start to shit my pants. And so you got a girdle on. So everything is like being contained. It's just contained chaos. And so I make my time for the first one. So I make the time. And you have to start to have that inner dialogue, that conversation with yourself where you go, if I stop and the morning is over, clearly, I'm going to have to fucking come back tomorrow and do this again. Or I run the second one and just finish. And so I'm like, I'm going to run the second one. And so the entire time that I run the second one, I'm shitting the entire time that I'm running. And so I get done, make the second time, which is a huge fucking deal, right? It's a big deal no matter what, let alone having like your fucking girdle is full of shit. And so I get done, everybody gets the break, whatever. It's a big deal, right? Because there's dudes that didn't make it, and they're going to have to fucking come back tomorrow, and they're going to come back every single morning to redo the test to see if they can get through it. So we get done, everybody breaks, whatever, and they go to do position drills, right? That was just a start, was that we were going to do. And then you have your normal position drills. And so I come up to the strength coach, and I'm like, Coach Mick, I made it. He's like, all right. He's like, but I totally shit my pants. He's like, awesome. And I'm like, no, Coach, I shit myself. And he's like, oh, well, then you're done. You're good to go. Go take care of that. And I was like, got it. And so I didn't have to do position drills that day.
Let's go.
So I was able to make the time, and then I didn't have to do any more workouts. So you can keep that in your back pocket, is if you ever have, and I don't know how well that would work like in a business setting where you shit yourself, right? Everybody still gives you kudos. but definitely but it's that mentality, right? That
Yeah.
mental part where it's like, this is horrible what's happening at the moment, but like, you just have to fucking get it done. You have to get it done.
You just gotta goddamn get through it. I know.
That's it.
And yeah, I know. And the worst part is like after we'd finished these whatever preseason conditioning workouts, and then we'd have study hall after.
Yeah.
So it's like it was just so hot out. It was just so like taxing, and you're just like so revved up. Then like you would take a shower after. I'd get dressed, and I'd still just be like dripping sweat.
Oh, for
and
sure.
Then I'd go sit in study hall, and my shirt would just get progressively more and more soaked. As I'm just sitting there, my arms are getting soaked. It's like I'm getting sweat all over the paper. It's like, oh my God, this is just so fucking miserable. And you're just forced to sit there in your own sweat for like an hour and a half at this goddamn study hall. And it was just clearly unproductive. But you got to do it. You got to drink your muscle milk and go to study hall.
Oh yeah, muscle milk, and we had like super tart cherry juice.
Okay, yeah.
It was like those cherry juices that's like 4 ounces, and it just is like, talk about like battery acid. You're just like, all right, the coach is saying this is good for me.
Yeah.
Well, all right, so let's share it. So sharing so far. So today on the Walk On Podcast, I'm here with Tony Cates. You can follow Tony on Instagram at Super T Cates. That's CATES. Super T Cates on Instagram. Tony is a fellow walk-on athlete like myself. Here on the Walk On Podcast, Tony played college basketball and overcame injuries and illnesses, and ultimately played throughout his career, played basketball, and then eventually became an author with a book called Lead to Unite. And Tony, you're here to be able to your story for sure is the same as we see with every walk-on that we ever get the opportunity to be able to talk with, is that it's usually they are testaments of resilience and leadership. And like we've been talking about, some of these stories is like the mindset that starts to get molded that we get to then take with us, right, from our days playing kind of into regular life. So like I said, you can follow Tony at Super T Cates on Instagram. You can follow me at JBanksFL. That's going to be our quick little intro, and we'll kind of keep that conversation going. So you talked about you playing in Stockton. Now I'm from Southern California. And so definitely when we start talking about like Central California, Northern California, you start getting into those areas, that inland area, I don't think people fully appreciate, because you think of Southern California, you think of California, you either think of Redwoods, San Francisco, or you think of LA or San Diego. There's not a full appreciation of the fact that California's a fucking desert.
Yeah.
And it is crazy hot. Like me, I was born in the desert in California. And for sure, like if you didn't have sun visors on your windshields, when it was in the summertime, your fucking dashboards would melt. So literally the plastic of the dashboards in the 1990s would just melt. Your radios would melt. And so you had to have reflective shit on your windshields. And then I went out to Florida, which was a whole nother different type of heat with the humidity. And for sure, I sympathize with those 100+ degree days. It is kind of next level. Now, you're not originally from California.
No, originally I'm from Wisconsin, kind of in the Madison area, south central Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly farmland, rolling hills, stuff like that. Grew up in a small town out there.
And what gets you to California, right? Like it's obviously basketball is what gets you out there. But so what was your experience like kind of playing high school ball in a small town and then ultimately getting wooed out to be a preferred walk-on out in California?
Yeah, it was I played on a really good high school team. We were all for a bunch of relatively short white guys, we I was the tallest one. I'm about 6'6", but we had played together for 6 or 7 years in a row. Sure. And so we had a lot of talent on that team, and we all fit together super well. And our only goal every game was to kick ass. Like no one cared about how many points they scored. Like the only goal was winning. And we just had really good team chemistry, and we won a lot of games. My junior year, we won a state championship. We ended up, we went on a 16-game winning streak to end the year. And then my senior year, we came in, we were ranked the #1 team in the state for Division II, and we ended up winning our first 17 games. And then one of our best guards broke his leg and had to sit out. And then actually my gallbladder stopped working. So for the final 8 or 9 weeks of the season, I couldn't eat any fat because basically your gallbladder helps you break down fat. So I was on a 0 fat diet. And so I went from, 6'6", 220 pounds, which for high school is a pretty decent size. And I withered away to like 190. I lost all my energy, all my strength, stuff like that. So it's just like, so our team just took 2 big hits kind of right at the end of the season. And we just weren't quite able to weather that storm. And we ended up going to state again, but losing in the state semifinals. So it was, in my family, it had always kind of been a thing where you go away for college. So my dad and my uncles and aunt and stuff like that, like for that whole side of the family, for college, you go away and you kind of learn about yourself and stuff like that. Most of my family had gone to the East Coast. My brother had gone out to Williams College out in Massachusetts. But I was never really a fan of winter, and I always wanted to go someplace warm.
Yeah, sure.
Especially in Wisconsin, the winters are freaking brutal there.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at different places. Started looking mostly at Division III schools that had good basketball programs and stuff like that. Like, but then as things went on, I just kind of wanted to at least take a shot at playing at a higher level, playing at Division I at some point. And so we were just kind of, my dad was a huge part of this. He was reaching out to schools, seeing where I could potentially walk on, seeing where, might be a good fit for me. And then my dad and I did this big road trip out in California. We flew out there and we drove basically all up and down California. We looked at like 8 different schools, talked to all the coaches and stuff like that.
What schools?
And so we looked at University of San Diego. We looked at Occidental, which is a Division III school. We looked at Claremont McKenna, which is a Division III school. Pomona, which is a Division III school. We looked at UC Santa Barbara. We looked at UC Irvine. We looked at St. Mary's. We looked at Pacific. Just like a handful of schools like that. And it kind of came down to either UC Irvine or Pacific, just because they seemed like the best options, and the coaches were most receptive to having me potentially walk onto their team.
And what does that look like when you guys are driving and you're going to these campuses? What was that process, right? You guys are going on campus visits. Are you communicating directly with the athletic departments, with the coaches? Like, what does that process actually look like?
Yeah, my dad was a huge part of that. So he was talking directly with the athletic departments and a lot of the coaches, saying we're basically making this trip and just seeing if we could stop by and talk to them and take a look at the school and stuff like that.
That's cool.
So he set it up where it was like a 5-day stretch where we just kind of went through and knocked out all these different schools. And a lot of times we'd get there early, we'd look at everything, and kind of on the way to the school, we'd look at the team's roster, we'd look at who they had at each position, we'd look at kind of what year they were and what potential they would have for me coming in and stuff like that, just to see where it's a good fit, just to like kind of get, me in the right headspace for this. And then we ended up getting to sit down and talk with a lot of the head coaches. That's cool. I know it was just such a great experience. And then, I mean, it was definitely overwhelming, and it all kind of blended together at some point. But
Yeah.
yeah, it turned out that UC Irvine and University Pacific were both kind of the most interested in terms of Division One schools, and they just God, it's just it was just so exciting to be able to do that. And so yeah, I ended up choosing Pacific because they seemed the most excited about me potentially going there.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like it would be a really good fit for me.
Now, a lot of times I think it felt like I always wish that when I was playing high school ball, I always wish that like my coaches were more involved. And if they were, the communication wasn't there. And like I didn't have a lot of communication from my say my head coach back to me or my family about recruitability or about film
Mm-hmm.
or about any of that kind of stuff of like sending out film or doing any of that. And so the route we went was I went to different camps. Anytime that
Okay.
a major university was doing a camp that had high school, high school football camps were over the summer, they would host a few days or whatever. You'd go and then you get to interact with those coaches and play in front of them. It was just
Mm-hmm.
easy recruiting for them where they could
Mm-hmm.
have high schoolers from all over the country, but then obviously they find somebody that's a standout. But I really dig the idea where you guys just essentially scouted these schools and
Mm-hmm.
then just called them directly. Like, I think that is
Yeah.
really what motivated your dad? What motivated you guys to go that route? Did you have support from your high school
Um,
coaches? Were your high school coaches involved like that? Or what like it seems drastic, right? It seems like
yeah.
super like grab the bull by the horns and we're not fucking relying on anybody else to make this happen. Like we're going to
Yeah.
will this into existence. Like I love it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Because in Wisconsin, there are a few Division One schools. There's like UW Green Bay, UW Milwaukee, University of Wisconsin, and Marquette. But that's kind of it. And there's not really much for Division Two, but there's really really good Division Three basketball in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Um, and so for the most part, um, all of the kids that are good but aren't quite enough to go or aren't quite good enough to go Division One. They all get recruited by these top level Division 3 schools. And
Sure.
I was definitely getting interest from these schools, but since I wanted to go away, or
Sure.
it was just kind of I wasn't at a high enough level where these schools were coming recruiting me.
Yeah.
So it's more like, okay, I want to make this happen, or I want to, do this thing. So it's kind of, we got to reach out and like you said, take the bull by the horn. So my dad was just such a huge part of that. Like he helped me put together this, kind of like a highlight tape type of thing.
Yeah.
With video of me playing, sent it to the coaches, made all the phone calls, and I feel like it's always easier when someone else hypes you up than to hype
Sure.
yourself up, So
Yeah.
I think he did a great job with that, and just like getting me in the door and being able to talk to these coaches and stuff. It was, it was, that's just kind of the way that we had to do it to make that work.
I like that because I think a lot of
Yeah.
times guys can be sitting back and waiting, right? Waiting for something to happen to them or for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a really awesome lesson for anybody that is wanting to, I don't know, if you it's like it's your fucking life. Like you
Yeah.
need to be an active participant in it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of times we're sitting around and we're waiting for somebody to bail us out. We're
Yeah.
waiting for something to happen. And it's like, dude, it happens because you do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those, it's the old story, right? But it's the idea of like, an old man prays to win the lottery his whole life and he eventually dies and he never wins. And then he gets to St. Peter and he says, what? St. Peter, like I prayed every single day and I never won the lottery. And he goes, you never bought a lottery ticket. And it's like, dude, you have to take the first fucking step. So I really dig where it's like, yeah, I could have done this, but it's like, this is what I wanted to do. What I want to do is X. I want to go away. I probably could have played or I could have walked on right to any of those areas, but it's like, but if I'm going to do it, I want to go away. I want to go somewhere else. I want to go to California. I want to kind of shoot for it. Now you've been talking about like D3 schools. Right. And all these different D3 schools, whether they're in Wisconsin or D3 schools that are in California. But where did you ultimately land? So when we talk about the University of Pacific and we talk about UCI, so UCI was down the street from where I lived. I literally went to UCI volleyball games and all sorts of stuff. They're the anteaters for everybody.
Yeah.
I fully appreciate it. Which also UCSB, I think they're the sea slugs. So I was secretly hoping that you were going to get closer with them. Some pretty outrageous ones out in California. But so between those two schools, obviously they're the most excited for you to be able to go and be there. So you get good feelings to go. So what level is Pacific?
It's kind of a mid-major school, I guess, in the it's the Big West Conference.
Okay. And what division are they for anybody that's listening?
Division One.
Okay.
Mid-major Division One. Big West Conference. Yeah, they're in same conference as UC Irvine, UC Davis, I think UC Santa Barbara, schools like that.
Right. And so college athletics, right, goes, as we work our way up those divisions, by the time we get to D1, so that's not D3. So that's a healthy jump, quote unquote, of competition and opportunity. What ultimately drives you to not even, you named some D3 schools that were on your list that you guys visited, but then the two schools that are options for you are D1. Why? If you already knew, like you say, I wasn't even there. And when I'm in Wisconsin, right, I'm really not good. And I appreciate that like neither was I.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, why didn't you get a scholarship? It's like, dude, because I wasn't good enough. What are you talking about? Like, it's like, there's no secret. There's no secret to, like, it's the guys that were better than I would. They got scholarship offers. So me being a walk-on just means that I'm ill. Like being a walk-on to go play, to go take on that role. And I'm going to ask you about this in a minute, but to take on that role it's a choice to go pay to be punished. So because that's what you choose to do, you don't choose to walk on or to go play at a place where maybe you get a better shot at like truly getting playing time initially, but you go right to D1. What's wrong with you? Why did you do that? Why would you choose to do that?
I think you just always have dreams of playing at the highest level that you can.
Yeah.
And it's, I felt like if I went D3 initially, it would just limit me in terms of my potential growth as a player, and in terms of the experience that I'd have going to college and playing college basketball. And it seemed like with the Division I programs, there was a level of commitment that was different from the level of commitment at the Division III programs, where it was like you were there and basically your job was to play basketball. Like that's what you were there for. Yeah. And it was just kind of a different mindset that I really liked, and I really wanted to be a part of that and participate in that. And it was, I don't know. The facilities were nicer. They had a strength and conditioning department, and it's just all this stuff like just got me excited. And it was like, oh hell yeah, the opportunity to do that, even if I don't play my first year, like that's fine with me. It's going to be a great experience, and I'm going to get better, and I'm going to. It's just something that is so rare and so valuable, and something that I probably didn't appreciate quite as much as I should have when I was going through it. But still, it was enough to drive me to want to do it.
Yeah, it's yeah, the answer is exactly how you described it was for me as well, right? It was this idea was, well, my goal was to play in the league. I wanted to play in the NFL. So
Hmm.
it wasn't even an option. I literally couldn't have told you a D3 school in the area.
Yeah.
Like, it just was like, no, it's if my goal is here, it's why would I go play anywhere not that's going to then put me in the best position to be able to go where I want to go.
Hmm.
And so it just was like, no, it's just all part of the plan. No, I didn't get a scholarship, whatever. Because I did. I went to
Yeah.
USD as well. Like, people were like, oh, go check out USD, whatever, you go play there. And I remember I got there, I'm
Hmm.
like, this football stadium is like a high school stadium. Like, what
Yeah.
what what the fuck are we talking about? Like, and that's where for me it was super straightforward. And just like you described, like, it is one of those things where it's like, no, like, I wanted to go and be challenged. Where for me it just was like, if I can play at D1, then that puts me like that is where I need to be, because then I don't
Hmm.
have a chance to go play at the next level if I don't, if I don't have the ability to play at the highest level in college, then how am I going to get to the NFL? And it blew me away. So you talked about your team that you played with in high school,
Hmm.
and definitely what you said was this idea where, like, going to D1, your job is to play the sport, which
Yeah.
for sure it's a fucking job. Like, they make you
Hmm.
sign paperwork.
Yeah.
You have to sign to say how many hours. It's, you're not allowed to go over 40 or whatever it was, but it was like, which you all had to lie about how often you were there, right?
I
But,
know.
but it was for sure. It was your job. Your job was to play ball. Like, that was,
Yeah.
but it was so contrasted because I had guys that went to Georgetown or Cornell or whatever, and they're fucking home during the summer. I remember being
Mm.
like, "What do you mean you're home? I don't understand that." Like, I'm not I'm not back home. I'm never back home. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, from being from California, if somebody went to go play in DC and then go play for whatever, it was like, "Oh yeah, they're on, like, the summer break." They're like, but I'm like, there is no summer break. What are you talking about? Like, I live here now.
It
The
never ends.
stadium
Yeah.
is my home. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, guys that you played with on that tight knit team, how many of you all went on to go play at the next level?
Um, so my junior year, the year we won state, four of the five starters went on to play college basketball at some point.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. So it was God. It was a really it was a really cool experience because my brother, who's 2 years older, and so as he was going through it, is kind of a changing of just kind of the culture around the basketball in the town and around the school and stuff like that, because they ended up going to state, and it was like the first team to go to state in a while, and it just kind of set this expectation. I think my dad had been working on brainwashing the top athletes in town to get them more focused on basketball and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
I know. So then it just kind of established this culture where then we came through, and where it wasn't this big shock, oh, we're going to state. It's like, okay,
Of
now
course you
let's
are.
actually fucking do something about it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So then my junior year, we won state. My senior year, we went to state and lost in the semifinals.
Right.
And then the year after us, they took second at state. So it was just like um, this badass little dynasty that went through for about 5 years.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was only a handful of us that went on to go play kind of the next level, and there was only maybe two or three of us that made it all the, like, played the full college
Hmm.
experience. So you redshirt D1. So let's
Hmm.
talk about your experience. So we kind of started, we were talking about, right, like, it's getting into
Yeah.
those workouts and fully appreciating what those workouts were like at
Yeah.
that D1 level. And you redshirt. Kind of tell me about that experience while you're there. Was because you don't end up staying there. And
Right.
I'm
Right.
curious as to kind of maybe the story, or what's the apex of, I went for it, I was at D1 and then I realized I need to pivot.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I got there, and like I said, my senior year of high school, I had to get my gallbladder taken out, and I had lost whatever, 30 pounds, something like that.
Yeah.
And so then I'm about back up to my previous weight when I go out to school. And the I get there, and the strength and conditioning coach looks at me and he's like, "You're going to gain 18 pounds in the first month here." And I'm like, like, okay, whatever. And
Yeah.
goddamn, he hit the nail on the head. First month, I was literally 18 pounds heavier. I was walking around at, 6'6", 230 pounds. So, and I was just feeling good, and went through all the preseason conditioning and stuff like that. And obviously it's just freaking torture, and it's just like brutal to go through that. So practices were starting, I think, like mid-October is when actual practices started. And before that, we'd have like individual practices, and we'd have team individuals, which were basically practices that they couldn't call practices because you're not legally allowed to,
You're not allowed to
to
have a
practice yet.
Yeah. Yep.
So like going through all that, but then it was like early October, and I had we had like a long weekend from school or something like that. And I'm from like the Madison, Wisconsin area, and the University of Wisconsin was playing Ohio State for their homecoming game.
Sure.
And it was like this huge football game. So I ended up flying home for that. And I got to see all my best buddies from high school, and I got to see all my friends. It was just such a great weekend. And to leave that and go back, across the country to the West Coast was just like,
Being alone.
once I did that, the homesickness set in to a degree that I could never have imagined would have hit me. It was just so freaking intense. And then practices started, and of course, the first few weeks of practices are just absolutely brutal. Meanwhile, I'm getting devastated by all these classes I'm taking, like the colonization of Latin America. So it's like, and I'm trying to make friends, but at the time I'm just like this early 19-year-old, super socially awkward, no confidence, anything like that. So it's like, holy shit, everything is just like that. It was just such a low point. And it's like, I hate this. I don't want to fucking do this shit. I just wasn't physically prepared. I wasn't socially prepared. I wasn't mentally prepared, anything like that. And it was just like, oh my God. And it just kind of kept getting worse and worse, where I just like kind of started to fall into this depression.
Yeah.
And it was like, fuck, I have seemingly everything that I thought I wanted, and I'm not happy. I'm actually freaking miserable. And then like I go home for Christmas, and I'm home for Christmas for like, I got to spend like 2 weeks at home, which was really nice. But then going back, it's like, God damn, I got to go back and do all this shit again. I know. Yeah. And it's like, by that point, I kind of already made up my mind where like, fuck it, I don't like this. I need to be closer to home. I need to, be closer to family and my friends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And kind of as second semester went on, like I had already mentally checked out and decided that I was going to transfer, just because I had just given up. And it was, I kicked myself for this, because as second semester went on, obviously you get deeper into the season. Instead of like doing the brutal preseason conditioning stuff, it's more like the maintenance, getting ready for games. So it's like much more tolerable. And then you start making friends, and you figure out what you want to study and stuff like that. So then it's like, oh, I kind of like this. I'm kind of getting the groove. But by that point, I'd already decided I was going, and it was I don't know. I guess it was kind of too late to change things and decide to stay. And it was just, it was just one of those goddamn things. But yeah, that's kind of the way it played out.
No, and it is, and you know where you are now, but definitely it sounds like there's a hint, and there's just a level of vulnerability, which I appreciate you sharing. Yeah. And but I definitely hear a hint of like, it sounds like there's possible like regret of like, I made this decision, and it sits as, is this still one of those things that sits as like a what if for you?
It definitely does. And it's, yeah, I definitely still have regret about it, and I'm definitely like, I realized I fucked that up, and it still hurts, and I'm still like, because then I transferred to this school in Madison, Division 3 school,
Yeah.
and then like because I think, oh, it's gonna be easier and I'm gonna fit in better and stuff like that. It's fucking harder. But I was but I was stronger from my freshman year, so I could
True.
handle it. But it
Yeah.
was goddamn harder, and it's like, and then I just realized that I just fucked up this opportunity because I just wasn't ready for it and wasn't prepared for it, and it was just like goddamn. But yeah, so then I don't know. So okay, so I don't know. I guess yeah. So I guess one of the turning points was um, kind of after the season ended, and then like during the kind of postseason strength is when you or strength and conditioning is when you do more of like the lifting, trying to like build muscle and stuff like that.
Sure.
And so that's when I started to get like more into lifting weights and stuff like that, and really, really like that. And at one point, the strength and conditioning coach, because I was like, just like, I was just right on that precipice, and he could tell. And he comes up to me and he's like, you're a big motherfucker. He's like, it's no longer about just trying to get through the workouts. Like, it's no longer about surviving. He's like, you
Right.
got to come in and you got to be ready to beast these workouts.
Yeah.
And it's like a switch just like flipped in my brain where it's like, holy shit, yeah, I can't be scared to come in and do this and like can't be scared to suffer and whatever. I have to look forward to that, and I have to come in and be ready to just fucking kick ass. And I have to make that kind of my thing and who I am. And once that's um, mindset kind of switched, then I fucking loved it. And then it's like I had already decided I was transferring and everything, and it's like fuck, it's too late now.
But you still
Yeah,
that it's an important mindset shift, right? Because that you get to take with you. And it
mm-hmm.
is that transition of right, like from being a boy to a man. And there's
Yeah,
that where I don't think you don't fully appreciate because like all you want to do is be like a real ass fucking dude. Like you want to be
yeah,
the man for so
mm-hmm.
long. As soon as you like hit puberty, you're like, I want to be a dude. I want muscles. I want to do all the things. Like I want to be that guy. And it just takes time
Mm-hmm.
to where you are, right? It's like you end up still being you're a boy at 18, 19 years old. You're still a boy.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize how much of a boy you are because you play against dudes that are 21, 22. You're like, oh,
Yeah,
that's a man. That's a man right there. And I want to be the man. And so there is that shift that eventually where, just like you said, it is such a solid example of like, it's not what you do.
mm-hmm.
What we all do, it could be very, very similar, but how we go about executing it literally is all the difference.
Yeah,
And that's exactly what your coach said. Like, listen, it's the same workout. It's the same workout that you do, but how you do it is literally going to be how you get the gain. So it is helpful, right? That you're with the right coach at the right time at that right moment that helps you make that mindset shift to where now you go to the Eagles. Now we're talking about and having some introspection, which I appreciate.
yeah.
But you don't go there and like crying your Cheerios and fucking just like lay down and be sad because you get the Eagles, because you go to the Eagles and you kind of ball out. You
Yeah,
have some great games, right? You have some opportunities where you really do show and you appear to be a really, really solid producer as you get to these. So you say you get there initially and you're like, God, this is harder. It was harder than it was, which I think is awesome, right? I think that's an
yeah,
awesome realization where it's like D1, D3, it kind of just depends what school you're at and what coaches you get. The
mm-hmm.
idea of any notion that like, oh, well, D3 is easier, right? D2 is easier than D1 or D1 AA or whatever. I
Mm-hmm.
love that you're like, no, like it was harder at the D3 school than it was at the D1 school.
Yeah, especially that first year, it just God, it was a it was a fucking slap in the face. And now instead of going through winter, in Northern California where it gets in the 50s and rains occasionally, now you're going through
Yeah.
winter in the Midwest where it's like
Yeah.
-10 and you don't see the sun for 3 weeks. it's just like, oh, and all the facilities are different and everything like that. It's just like, it just, yeah, you got to, everything about it was more difficult. I really, really wasn't expecting that. But
Yeah.
because of that year, that freshman year, and because of that shift in mindset, I came into it and I was just ready for it.
Now you do go, you get to produce, you do get to get playing time, and you're playing and you're doing things, but you start to experience some adversity. And I want to prep this with, I think it's really important for like the overall lesson that you keep coming back to, which is the first year at Pacific was fucking rough. And it
Mm-hmm.
just is keeping your head above water. And then you get to the Eagles and it's just as fucking rough. First year, it's like keeping your head above water. And what I've always found is that lesson that we all learn, that sports helps us start to understand. And at college, it is that next level piece. But I've found that no matter what job I've gone to, that first year, do you know what it is? It's just fucking keeping your head above water.
Yeah.
No matter when you start that thing, it's keeping that head above water is like literally goal number one. It's
Mm-hmm.
say yes to fucking everything. Whatever coach, whatever boss, whatever it's like, if they ask you a thing or they want you to do, is yes, sir. It's whatever the fuck you want to do. I'm in because I'm the guy and I want to be the guy. So therefore, I say yes to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just fucking keep your head above water, keep your head down, and don't let anybody like have attention to you in a negative way. And then just fucking make it. Just keep your head above and get through year one. Because, like you kind of said at Pacific, it's like once you got to that point, it's right when you started to be able to breathe and start being like, all right, my head's above water. And now I can start looking to like kick some ass. You kind of like, I already had wavered, right? I wavered
Mm-hmm.
mentally, and then off I go. I'm going to have to transfer, and I'm transferring somewhere new. So you get to start that all over.
Yeah.
And that start over to where you stick with Pacific. Your head starts probably to, you stick now, go to the Eagles, you stick with them, your head starts to get above water, but it wasn't like you were adversity free.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about a little bit of that adversity that you dealt with. Now that you're at the Eagles, you've produced a little bit, and then you start getting, which I wouldn't have attributed to basketball. Very normal where I'm from, which is
Yeah, right.
CTE and is horrific, right? All of us,
Yeah.
our brains are going to be full of proteins that are going to turn hard and turn us into psychos. But you started
Yeah,
getting a bunch of concussions.
yeah, exactly. I know my first year at Pacific, for the most part, I was healthy. My first part at Edgewood, part of the Eagles, I was healthy for basically the whole year, and then I think in one of the last games we played, I took a charge and hit my head, head whipped back and hit on the back of the floor. Yeah.
Yeah.
So concussion, and I was out for 4 weeks. I missed the rest of the season, and just I don't know. I had to wear sunglasses to class and had to
Yeah.
wear
With the light.
earplugs all the time to like keep the light dull and stuff like that. And God, it was it wasn't fun. And then then I go into my junior year, and I just work my ass off over the summer. I'm interning at a strength and conditioning place that trains athletes. And so I'm like working out there too. And so I come into my junior year just absolutely ready to kick ass. I go through all the preseason conditioning. I go through all the like first month of practices. And then we have a exhibition game against UW Green Bay, which is a Division I school. And so we're playing them, and for the first half, we're neck and neck. And then kind of like right toward the end of the first half, they have a 7-foot big guy who I'm covering. And he's in the post, turns, I take an elbow basically straight to the temple.
Oh no.
And yeah, and then it's like, holy shit, I don't feel good. I don't feel coordinated anymore. We go in halftime, we come out, and I'm like trying to warm up, and it's like I can't handle the ball. I can't like do anything like that. Mm-hmm. And so then we go to start the game, and they're like, yeah, you got to go back into the locker room. You
pissed your pants.
Yeah.
You can't be out here anymore.
I know. Sorry. So then I'm like trying to find the locker room. I'm like, I'm like, where the hell is the locker room? I'm like
Oh,
so
no.
disoriented.
Yeah.
Yeah, eventually make my way back there. Um, I call my dad and I'm like, tell him what happened and what. Sorry, need some more OJ.
Then you're good.
Yeah, call my dad, tell him what happened. Everything like that. We go back and then basically I have to sit in my bedroom with everything dark
In the dark. Yep.
Yeah, until I stopped getting like these headaches. And for me, it ended up being about 4 weeks.
Holy shit.
So that's 4 weeks of immobility. That's 4 weeks of not exercising.
Yeah.
So everything that I did in the off season to condition my body and get ready for the season is just melting away. And it's like, what the fuck is going on? And plus, if you're not moving around doing stuff, like if you're just in the dark, you become depressed. Like you can't do that and keep a positive mindset. So it's just like things just started deteriorating.
Yeah.
And then I come back from that, and we're out in Hawaii for like this tournament, which was actually super badass. But I took a knee to the quad and got this like bad quad contusion.
Yeah.
Where it's just like my muscle wouldn't contract and just like completely atrophied. So I know, dude. So we had like a little break after that tournament, but then is like coming back, it's like still not functioning well. And then I end up getting fucking mono. And so I'm out like 2 or 3 weeks from that. And I'm like trying to get back from that. And mono just wipes you out. So you're just completely exhausted. And then it's like I'm finally getting back from that. We're playing in our like conference tournament, and it's like I'm finally starting to play well, and it's like holy shit, I feel like I'm about to like blossom into what I've like supposed to been like playing like at the whole time, and I get another goddamn concussion, so I'm out for the rest of the season. Yeah, dude. So that was my junior year. Then my senior year, I come in, and they're like, okay, you've had all these concussions. Like, they were going to make me wear a rugby helmet. I know, like a goddamn Quidditch helmet. While I played basketball, I'm just like getting mentally prepared to get heckled from every student section we played because I got this fucking helmet on.
Yeah.
And like after the third practice, I'm just getting like pounding migraines to the point where I'm like, something's wrong here. So then they're like, okay, you just gotta go like sit in your room till these calm down. I was in my room for I think it was like 10 weeks straight. It was a long ass time, and it was just I lost all my conditioning, everything like that, and then they're just like, yeah, you can't play, and I'm like, I don't even know if I'm gonna, be able to finish school or whatever. So it's just, god damn, everything just kind of like dwindled away, and it was so intense because it was. It was going through the physical, traumatic brain injury, but it's also the mental, emotional trauma of realizing that, holy shit, I'm not a basketball player anymore. Like, holy shit, I'm not an athlete anymore. Like this thing that I had, dedicated my life to, and my entire identity was wrapped around this. Mm-hmm. And my entire school didn't matter that much. I had to get good grades, but I had to perform as a basketball player, and all of a sudden that was gone. And it's like, holy shit, what do I do now? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the whole reason you're in school is to play ball.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I went to college. I didn't go to college to sit in fucking Latin American colonization classes. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, I'm here to play football, and then they'll also make me do class stuff, and I'll just take care of that when keep playing, right?
Yeah.
How do you cope with that? So what did that process look like for you as you have this realization? Because all of us have to deal with it. Yeah. All of us deal with this at one point, to where some of us have more time to prepare, and then majority, probably more, don't, right? More probably just get it snuffed out, right? It's just taken away. Yeah. What was that coping process like for you? How did you deal with it? How did you cope with it? And what helped you get to the other side to where you were able to deal with
Yeah.
it?
It started off where it was, I was mostly focused on just kind of getting my brain to work
Yeah.
again, just like getting the headaches gone, getting myself where I could function again, go back to class and stuff like that. That was kind of the immediate bigger problem where I was like, oh shit, I'm starting to freak out. Like, I don't know if this is going to be a continual thing or
Forever.
whatever. So that was kind of the immediate thing. And then it was kind of the realize, and then it was like, oh, I can always play again next year. I could go to grad school and I have more years of eligibility. I can keep playing it and whatever. And then it kept going. And then I was like, I just didn't know if I had it in me to try to do this again,
Sure.
because it's so much preseason conditioning. It's so much dedication. And it was like, once kind of that momentum was taken away from me, then it's like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
Right.
And then it was, then I started to kind of focus more on the lifting weights and the exercise and the sports performance training and stuff like that, where I was doing it myself and I was coaching other people. And it was always kind of in my mindset where it's like this thing where, yeah, like that I will go back and play again and finish out my career or whatever. But then, like, as it kept going and as that kind of dream kept getting pushed back further and further, it's like, oh shit, I'm not going to play again. Like, this is it. Like,
Yeah.
I've played my last college game and I'm not going back. And that was really, really freaking hard realization to come to. And it was something where I had to kind of find something else to fill that void. And for a while, it was exercise and lifting weights and doing stuff like that. But then I realized that I really only loved that because it helped me. It helped
Play
me on the
ball.
basketball court
Yeah.
and do that. And without basketball as like the kind of highest value in which everything else was dedicated toward, the lifting weights and stuff started to lose its meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then it was a weird feeling. And I was, I don't know. I was just continually looking for different things, trying different things. I was writing a lot. I was, trying to process these feelings and trying to figure out what new direction I could take with my life. And so I focused on personal training because my brother was a personal trainer, and that kind of got me into that route
Yeah.
and kind of into that and gym scene. And then I realized I didn't actually love it as much as I thought I was. So I was kind of lost again, and I was like, okay, I need to get like a regular job or whatever. So then
Yeah.
I decided to go to business school because I didn't have any experience to get like a regular job. Um, so I moved out to Boulder, Colorado in 2016 to go to grad school to get an MBA at the University of Colorado. And, I kind of went through it there as well because I was in class and it's like, I realized that grades didn't actually matter in helping you get a job after you finished. So
True.
it's like, so then I started questioning, like, what am I doing? Like, why am I here? What am I doing this for? Stuff like that. And it's just like, I started to lose like all, meaning and purpose. And it was kind of, I had to fall into that hole and then and kind of give up on the like culturally implied definition of success in terms of like getting high letter grades in grad school.
Sure.
And once I gave up on that, then it was like, okay, I can start focusing on what I actually want to do and what makes me happy, which turned out to be, writing and thinking about leadership and group dynamics and teamwork and stuff like that. So I wrote, so I started writing essays more along those lines, even if they weren't necessarily what the professor was looking for in terms of the grading rubric. Um, And one of my professors really liked the essays I was writing. So he started kind of tailoring the assignments to more fuel what I was interested in. And that kind of got me going in terms of thinking about trust and how it works in a in a relationship and organization and stuff like that.
Sure.
And ultimately fueled the book that I ended up writing. So it was just, I don't know, kind of a long wavering journey to eventually get me to where I am, which while you're going through it and you're not able to see the bigger picture while you're going through it. But then once you get kind of far enough along, you look back and say, holy shit, that was actually probably the best thing that could have happened because it got me to where I am right now.
Yeah. And it allows you to kind of take, like you said, this personal exploration, right? Philosophical type exploration of everything that you've dealt with and really kind of in real time coping with, to be able to then take that next step and really just do. It seemed like you were doing the right thing, which is trying to find things to do, to kind of put that energy into, I don't know, creating something or doing something,
Yeah.
and finding that meaning. Now, when it comes to the book, so again, the book is Lead to Unite, and it's available on Amazon via paperback. There it is, right? And on Kindle.
Yeah.
And the way you've described it is the writing style is in a stream of consciousness. And that seems quite unique, right? That stream of
Yeah.
consciousness style. How did that approach of choosing that style of writing? It sounds like it kind of gets begun with this essay concept that you're doing for your professor. But how does that stream of consciousness style start to help you kind of convey your thoughts and the experiences and everything that goes into Lead to Unite?
Yeah. So it was, I feel like for most of my life, I guess this happens for, if you're trying to get good grades in school, then what's the best way to do it? And the best way to do it is to learn what the instructor thinks is valuable, and either that's what the instructor is going to put on the test, or writing a paper that the instructor likes. So either way, to get good grades is to adopt the instructor's values. And in playing basketball, how do you get playing time is to do what the coach wants you to do. And if you do that, if you adopt the coach's values, then you and do it well enough, then you get to play. And so like we're conditioned to kind of seek guidance and approval from authority in order to get rewards from the holder of what we are pursuing.
Yeah.
And
coach or supervisor or manager.
Yeah, exactly. So when I started writing the book, I was writing in a way that I was trying to, essentially in my head, please my professors, please my parents, stuff like that. And it kind of got to the point where I was getting frustrated with that, and I was kind of getting burned out with that, where I realized that it was I just didn't have the juice to keep doing that, because it was like I just stopped caring about what these people thought or whether they actually liked what I was writing or not. And then had this crazy experience where at 32 years old, way too late, I got my wisdom teeth taken out.
Okay.
And it ended up getting super infected right here.
Of course it did, Tony.
I know, super infected. So I go to the oral surgeon, and they look at it, and it's just like incredibly swollen. And they're like, holy shit, you need to like go home, like pack a bag and then go to the ER. And they're like, if it starts like feeling like it's swelling shut, you got to like go to the ER immediately. So I'm like driving home, and I'm like, it's getting harder and harder to breathe. I'm like, holy shit, my fucking throat's swelling shut. And so I GPS the ER, and it's 19 minutes away, and I'm like, oh god damn it, I gotta fucking make it 19 minutes. And it's like, at that time, in that moment, it was like, holy shit, I could actually die right now.
I'm gonna die
driving to the emergency room, because I also hadn't slept in 4 days because I had a fever, and it was just so swollen I couldn't sleep. So I was like, obviously not in my right mind. And so it's just, when you face death like that, it's like, oh my God, like it just puts things into perspective in a way that just kind of going about your normal life doesn't. And so it's like it kind of shook me to my core, where I realized that I don't really give a fuck if anyone likes what I say or what I write or anything like that. What I write has to be true to me, and it has to be an expression of what I'm feeling and what I'm going through in that moment. So then I changed kind of my perspective and my writing style, where instead of creating an outline and trying to write as if I was like a junior professor in training and like whatever, where I was like, I'm feeling, anxiety right now, or I'm feeling overwhelmed about trying to be successful right now or whatever, and writing basically from that place and trying to let those feelings kind of come through and process themselves. And the more that I did that, the more the book actually became like started to take shape and became what I deep down wanted it to be. So yeah,
I think that's awesome. And hopefully anybody that's listening, right, you don't need to have a near-death experience to get to this point, right? Because you get to hear your story. That's one of the benefits of telling stories for me has always been that I can learn from somebody else. If somebody says drugs are bad, okay, I can listen to that and be like, oh, I got that. Like, I don't need to go down that road to figure that out. And the one thing that I like is where you come out on the other side, which is something that I think a lot of us, we eventually learn, which is the way we're taught to write, the way we're taught to think, the way what pleases our professors or pleases our teachers is fucking bullshit. And it's not how anyone else writes. It's not how anything else exists. So this is this thing where you eventually, especially once you go to university and you get indoctrinated so strongly in how you play that game, once you get out into regular life, people will think you are a pompous schmuck if you write what used to be able to please those professors. So for you to be able to kind of, you use that. And I like the idea, which is, of course, that's regular life. Whatever that energy is, right? That whether it's nervous energy, anxiety, excitement, sadness, whatever it is, when you lean into those things and then utilize them for fuel, right, that helps you do whatever you're about to do. And and I love that you were able to take that and transition that into your writing that eventually allows you to kind of take something where your whole life was dedicated to ball. Right. Say my whole life was dedicated to football. Every other sport that I played, right? I played basketball and volleyball and track and field, and I did all these different things when I was in high school, but it was always to make me a better football player. Like everything was basketball has good footwork and keeps me in condition because that will help me with my footwork with football. Like it was always, everything always tied back to that. And it sounds like that's a very lived experience for you as well, right? Everything tied back to basketball. The idea that this book really represents for you is like something that you were able to truly dedicate, right? Time and emotion and energy and everything, and see it all the way to completion is probably what it sounds like the first thing that's not basketball that you got to create and kind of throw your full self into and be able to have a result the same way as being able to make a jump shot or be able to play a game or be able to get a double, whatever those things were. Now this book kind of gave you that ability where it's like, hey, that's my thing. I was able to do that. I think that's awesome. I think it's the ability to kind of get to that point is quite the journey.
Hell yeah. No, I completely agree. I feel like the journey is about figuring out what you can do in your life that allows you to be exactly who you're supposed to be. And I read in the book that in school I was never a great student. I always felt like I was intelligent and smart, but never got great grades. And I always felt like a waterfall being judged on how well I could fill a glass of water without spilling. And
sure.
And so and then writing this book is like, holy shit, this feels like an adequate or an accurate representation of everything that I have to offer. And so I feel like a lot of the journey is finding that kind of role for yourself where you don't feel hemmed in by other people's expectations and desires of you, but you're able to just kind of express yourself fully to the absolute best of your ability.
Yeah, I love that. So anybody that's listening, right? Is whether they're former athletes or parents that have kids that are up and coming athletes, or whether or it is the athlete themselves, right? Is listening. What advice would you give them, kind of based off of this journey that you've had? What would be kind of what is that core advice that you would give them to consider and think about and keep with them as they get ready for their own journey?
I've been watching a lot of Kobe Bryant videos on Instagram in particular, and where he talks about his mindset,
Yeah.
and how it wasn't necessarily about the fear of loss or the desire to win, but it was about going through the process, and it was about his job was to be as good of a basketball player as he could be, and it was about the preparation for the game and falling in love with the preparation and doing that to the best of his ability. And when he did that, the outcomes in the games would take care of themselves.
Yeah.
So I would, if like looking back on my basketball career, that's the thing that I would give advice to my younger self is fall in love with the process of working really fucking hard and getting better at basketball or whatever it is you're doing. And, use the outcomes as kind of feedback and guidance as to whether you're on the right track or not. But pay attention to the process and just try to get better, no matter what you're doing, no matter whether it's writing a book or whether it's playing basketball or playing football or any sport. Whatever you're doing, just focus on getting better and just pay attention to the process. And just if you master that, and if you dedicate yourself to improvement in that respect, then the outcomes are going to take care of themselves, and you're going to walk away knowing that you did everything that you could, because you weren't over concerned with the games and winning and losing, even though it's fucking great feeling to win.
Right.
But you know that you left it all at stake because you were dedicated to the process of getting better. And so that's the biggest thing that I would advise my younger self and other people who are coming up and going through the process. Just fall in love with practice, fall in love with the journey, and fall in love with the process of getting better.
Yeah, I love that, because as we've been talking, right, one of my favorite parts of our conversation was you talking about the process of you and your dad looking for schools.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That was the process.
Yeah.
Right. Of finding the right school. You found one. There wasn't a concern that you weren't going to find one.
Mm-hmm.
But what you remember is the process of makes you smile and laugh to yourself as you are thinking of all of those thoughts of time with your dad, right? Those are invaluable until we both lose everything due to CTE and terrible things that happen to our brains. Until those memories are lost, right? Until all those memories are gone forever, it's that memory gets to be with you. And that's that process. So there is these pieces, like you said, where it's, if all you were done was overly concerned about what school was it going to be and all those things, that was it, that you kind of get to lose that appreciation. So I really think that's awesome. I think it's really sound advice. So what's next for you, right? What is something right now that you are working on, either new challenges or projects that you're pursuing, or kind of that's putting your eyes into the future now that you have the book that's written, and now that that's kind of been your focus, you kind of get to start with something new or put a new focus. What's the thing that you're focused on now?
Exactly. Well, I mean, for the longest, since the book came out, all I've thought about in terms of the book is how can I make it better? And I think about how I can go back and revise and stuff like that. But then I realized that with that mindset, I'm not actually, it makes me hesitant to promote the book, because all I can see is ways to make it better. And then I feel insecure about it. So instead, I've had to shift my mindset where it's like, okay, I have this thing, I have this product right here. how can I use this and what I have right now to help as many people as I possibly can? How can I use this to add as much value to the world as I can? So then my next kind of steps are using what I have to, to try to create value for other people. And doing that by creating content on social media, writing blog posts, things like that, just trying to share the ideas in the book with people to help them, um, overcome some of the things that I've worked through that in my life, help them overcome the challenges that I've had to overcome. And after that, I have 5 more books planned in my head that I'm going to start writing.
Okay.
Hopefully I will, potentially looking into like an MFA program in creative nonfiction to see if that's an opportunity. But right now, I'm kind of in this transition point where for the past 5 years, I was a writer trying to write this book and trying to finish this book and get it out into the world. And now that it's done, it's once again having that almost like crisis of identity where I'm like, okay, who am I now? What is my purpose at this point? And so just, kind of making that transition, trying new things, seeing what I like, seeing what gets me fired up. But I think the focus is always on adding value for other people.
Yeah. And I dig the fact that this is tied where you're, again, with the book that you have and leadership and this connection, right? Of where you talked about the idea of trust and empathy and leadership and all of these things being intertwined together and how important it is. Your story of being an athlete and going after and getting things, I know for certain, right? There are so many young kids that are out there and high school athletes that always just is, there's never enough mentors that are out there, right? There's never enough people that are sharing that vision and helping keep your head on the right track and knowing you only know what you know. And that's where you'd end up being so much at the mercy of the people that are leading you. And like you said, you develop or you take on, right, whatever your coach is. So you adapt and you become whatever he or she is going to make you to become. And that means it's Russian roulette with which coach you're going to get. Because just because they're a coach doesn't mean that they're any fucking good. You know what I mean? So and that's where the benefit of having people like yourself and having people that are out there that you've played the game, you've done these things, you've handled that adversity and came out on the other side. I definitely think that your story and the lessons that you put in your book are definitely hold value that go well beyond just black and white, where you have the ability to go out and you would have immense impact of being able to speak to young people and speak to people that's what they need, right? They need that guidance and they need that idea of, and I think definitely what we see is that same feeling that you had when you were in high school and you guys had played for so long. You were so so united, right? Of playing together. It's that ability to understand one another and trust one another is definitely those pieces where every team would benefit of being able to have those lessons be in the forefront of their mind. So I love the idea of more books. I like the idea of maybe that's, like you said, don't need to go change what you've written, but being able to now, being a writer is one thing. And then once it's here, now it's time to be able to market it and be able to get it out. And I think it's doing interviews like this where you get to share your background and share the story and then share kind of what you've now done with that story. I think that is a great first step, and you'd be able to continue that and be able to have the opportunity. So I hope you get some opportunities to be able to share and keep working towards it. Cause then, like you said, you get to dive into all next pieces. Cause I like the idea where it's just, hey, I'm a writer. This is where I've landed. And that's cool. Well, Tony, so again, everybody can follow you on Instagram, right? At Super T Cates. Anything else that you would want to plug or put out there for anybody to be able to either follow along? Do you have a YouTube channel? Do you have anything else that you're working on?
I don't have any of that right now. I'd say the Instagram is the best place to find out what's going on, and kind of follow the journey as it progresses.
I love it. I love it. Well, Tony, it was awesome being able to talk with you. I appreciate you sharing the story. Again, this is the Walk On Podcast. I'm your host, John Fairbanks. You can follow me on Instagram at jbanksfl, and like and follow and subscribe to the podcast. Helps you find out whenever we release new episodes, of being able to interview and speak with folks that have come. They were walk-ons in college, and be able to share their stories of how they put it all together and were able to be college athletes. So, all right, Tony.
It's been a pleasure,
Thanks
John.
again,
Thank you very much for having me on. And
absolutely.
yeah, really appreciate it.